Imagine waking up one morning and suddenly the Earth just stops spinning. It sounds like something out of a disaster movie, right? But what if I told you this could actually happen? If the Earth were to stop spinning right now, the consequences would be catastrophic. Picture winds stronger than a Category 5 hurricane, towering tsunamis, and entire cities being flung across the planet. It sounds like pure chaos, but what would really happen? Let's break it down. We know that Earth spins at around 1,670 kilometers per hour at the equator, and that spin has a huge impact on everything we experience, from the day-night cycle to ocean currents. But what if all that stopped in an instant? What would happen to our planet, the atmosphere, and all of us? Buckle up, because we're about to explore the mind-blowing science behind this apocalyptic scenario. And trust me, you won't believe some of the things that could go down. We live on a planet that's constantly in motion. Every day, Earth spins around its axis at an incredible speed. But most of us don't feel it. Why? Because we, along with everything else on Earth, are moving at the same speed. If you've ever been on a plane, for example, you know that once you're cruising at altitude, it can feel like you're barely moving. Well, it's the same idea with Earth's rotation. The speed might seem insane. At the equator, Earth spins at about 1,670 kilometers per hour. That's 1,037 miles per hour. But because we're all moving with it, we don't notice. It's like being in a car going 60 miles per hour on a smooth highway. It feels like you're just sitting still, right? So, what happens when this motion suddenly stops? The short answer is absolute chaos. But let's dive deeper into why. First, let's break down why Earth even spins in the first place. How and why does Earth spin? Earth's rotation started billions of years ago, during the formation of the solar system. When our solar system was just a cloud of gas and dust, gravity caused it to collapse in on itself, forming the sun and planets. As this cloud contracted, it began to spin faster, a process called conservation of angular momentum. This is why when you twirl a figure skater and they pull in their arms, they spin faster. As Earth formed, it carried that spin with it, and that's why it keeps rotating to this day. There's nothing to stop it, unless an enormous force intervenes, which is what we're going to explore. But Earth's rotation doesn't just give us day and night. It has far-reaching consequences for everything from weather patterns to the shape of the planet itself. Earth's rotation is crucial for our weather systems. The spinning of Earth causes the Coriolis effect, which influences ocean currents and atmospheric circulation. Without this, we wouldn't have the familiar trade winds or ocean currents that regulate temperatures around the globe. Additionally, Earth's spin affects the shape of the planet. Earth is not a perfect sphere, but an oblate spheroid, meaning it's slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. This happens because of the centrifugal force created by Earth's rotation. If Earth stopped spinning, this bulging would gradually disappear, causing the water in the oceans to shift toward the poles, radically changing the planet's topography. And let's not forget the day-night cycle. One full rotation of Earth gives us a 24-hour day, with 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of night. This cycle impacts everything from human sleep patterns to plant growth. Without this rotation, the concept of a day or night would lose its meaning entirely. So, what happens if Earth suddenly stops spinning? The idea of Earth suddenly stopping is both terrifying and fascinating. But before we jump into the chaos, let's think about the mechanics of this sudden stop. For this scenario, let's assume that somehow the Earth's rotation comes to a complete halt in an instant. No gradual slowdown, no warning. Everything on Earth, oceans, atmosphere, everything, has been spinning at 1,670 kilometers per hour. Now, imagine all of that suddenly coming to a halt. The inertia of everything that was in motion has nowhere to go. The initial shockwave. The first thing you'd experience is a massive shockwave. As Earth halts, everything that was moving at that speed would continue to move for a brief moment. Think of it like slamming on the brakes in a car, but instead of coming to a gentle stop, you're still flying forward at incredible speed. Cars, buildings, trees, the oceans, all of it would be swept forward, carried by the inertia of Earth's rotation. The initial shock would send a shockwave across the planet, causing destruction on an unimaginable scale. Everything on the surface of the planet, from houses to mountains, would feel the impact of that sudden stop. The atmosphere itself, which is moving at the same speed as the surface, would keep moving for a short while, creating winds so fast they'd make even the most powerful tornadoes look tame. Scientists estimate that the winds in this scenario would reach speeds of more than 1,000 miles per hour, 1,600 kilometers per hour. That's 10 times faster than a tornado. These winds would rip apart buildings, forests, and cities. For comparison, the strongest winds ever recorded on Earth were around 400 miles per hour during the 1999 Oklahoma tornado outbreak. But now, imagine winds over twice that speed, ripping across entire continents. Tidal waves and tsunamis. Then there's the ocean. The water would not simply stop. It would continue moving at 1,670 kilometers per hour, sloshing around like water in a bathtub. Massive tsunamis would race across the oceans, reaching coastlines with towering waves hundreds of meters high. These waves wouldn't be just a tidal surge from a storm. They would be massive, almost like the oceans themselves were crashing against the land. Because Earth's rotation also influences the distribution of water, with the equator pulling water outward. This sudden shift would cause the oceans to redistribute themselves, moving toward the poles. So, areas that are now close to the equator might be flooded, while areas near the poles could be left high and dry. This would radically change coastlines and even entire continents. The skies would go wild. If you've ever seen a weather system move, like a thunderstorm or hurricane, you know that it's often driven by the Earth's rotation. Now, imagine storms and hurricanes intensified by the extreme inertia of everything spinning wildly. Without Earth's rotation to balance out the forces, storms would grow in intensity, reaching terrifying levels. The lack of Coriolis effect would mean weather patterns would behave unpredictably, with no regularity to winds or precipitation. In addition, Earth's atmosphere would be thrown into disarray. With the sudden stop, the atmosphere, still moving at the same speed, would rush toward the ground. This would cause violent tornadoes, shock waves, and potentially catastrophic pressure changes. Air, which was once moving at 1,670 kilometers per hour, would collide with the still surface of the planet, creating unimaginable turbulence. While the initial chaos of the sudden stop would be disastrous, the longer-term effects would be just as profound. Let's take a look at some of the long-term consequences that would unfold if Earth came to a halt. The end of the day-night cycle. First, there's the end of day and night as we know it. Without Earth's spin, one side of the planet would be stuck facing the sun, while the other would be locked in permanent darkness. This would create a world where one side is constantly scorched by the sun, with temperatures soaring to over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 537 degrees Celsius in some places. On the other side, the constant darkness would send temperatures plummeting to below -100 degrees Fahrenheit, -73 degrees Celsius. In this new world, there would be no stable conditions for life to thrive. The collapse of the magnetic field. Earth's rotation also plays a crucial role in generating the planet's magnetic field. This field protects us from harmful solar radiation and cosmic rays. But if Earth stopped spinning, this magnetic shield would collapse. Without the protection of the magnetic field, solar radiation would bombard the surface of the Earth, stripping away the atmosphere and making life virtually impossible. This scenario is eerily similar to what scientists believe happened to Mars, which once had a thick atmosphere, but lost it due to the collapse of its magnetic field. A shift in gravity. Gravity, on Earth, is slightly weaker at the equator because the centrifugal force from Earth's rotation pushes objects outward. If Earth were to stop spinning, gravity at the equator would increase. Meanwhile, the poles, which are already under higher gravity due to the planet's shape, would see less of a gravitational shift. This could have profound effects on ocean levels, ecosystems, and even human physiology over time. In fact, people might notice a slightly stronger pull of gravity, making everyday tasks feel harder than they do now. Immediate effects. Chaos unleashed. Now that we have an understanding of why Earth spins and the science behind it, let's talk about what happens the instant Earth stops spinning. We're diving into the immediate aftermath of this catastrophic event, and trust me, it's even wilder than you might think. From destruction on a global scale to weather systems spiraling out of control, these first moments would be pure chaos. 1. Everything keeps moving. The most immediate consequence of Earth's sudden stop is that everything that was moving, everything on the surface of the Earth, will keep moving. Remember, Earth's rotation means that everything is already traveling at around 1,670 kilometers per hour, 1,037 miles per hour, at the equator. So, when Earth halts, the atmosphere, the oceans, buildings, trees, and even people would continue moving at that speed for a short while. This is inertia at work. Imagine you're in a car traveling at 60 miles per hour. If the car suddenly slammed into a wall, you'd keep moving forward, right? It's the same principle, only on a much larger and far more catastrophic scale. 2. Insane winds and storms. As the atmosphere continues to move at 1,670 kilometers per hour while Earth's surface comes to a stop, the result is catastrophic winds. These winds would be like nothing we've ever seen before. Earth's atmosphere, which is now moving at the same speed as the planet's rotation, would collide with the surface and whip into violent, destructive winds. These winds could exceed 1,000 miles per hour, 1,600 kilometers per hour. That's 10 times faster than the most powerful tornadoes ever recorded. These winds wouldn't just knock over trees. They would tear buildings to pieces, shred the landscape, and send entire cities flying through the air. Structures would crumble like paper, and anything that wasn't firmly anchored to the earth would be turned into flying debris. To put it in perspective, the strongest tornado ever recorded in the US had winds reaching around 300 miles per hour. The winds we're talking about here would be over 3 times that speed, and since the winds would span the entire globe, there would be no safe place to hide. The sheer force of the air moving at that speed would be enough to level entire continents. As the winds scream across the Earth, the weather systems would become completely unpredictable. Without Earth's spin, the familiar rotation of the atmosphere that creates the planet's storms and weather patterns would be gone. So, what would that mean? 3. The oceans go rogue. Let's talk about the oceans for a second. With Earth's rotation driving ocean currents and maintaining the balance of water across the planet, the moment Earth stops spinning, that balance would be completely disrupted. As the surface of the planet halts, the oceans, still moving at 1,670 kilometers per hour, would rush toward the land. This sudden shift would create tsunamis of unimaginable size. Massive waves, hundreds of meters high, would slam into coastlines, leaving everything in their wake. These waves wouldn't be the typical waves you see in a storm, but more like giant sloshes of water that would flood entire cities. The force of these waves would be enough to wipe out coastal areas completely, submerging everything in their path. So, after everything we've explored, one thing is crystal clear. If Earth were to suddenly stop spinning, life as we know it would be utterly destroyed in the blink of an eye. The first moments would be pure chaos. Shockwaves ripping through the surface, oceans surging over land, and winds howling at speeds unimaginable. Cities would be destroyed, landscapes reshaped, and the sky would become an unrecognizable battlefield of violent storms and shifting atmospheric pressures. But the destruction doesn't end there. The long-term consequences would reshape the planet in ways we can't even fully comprehend. The loss of the day-night cycle would bring with it unrelenting extremes in temperature, from blistering heat to freezing cold. Without Earth's rotation, the atmosphere would collapse, and the very structure of our planet would shift. Life, as we understand it, would no longer be possible. The Earth would be a completely different world, one where survival is a distant hope. The ecosystems that depend on a stable climate would collapse, and the lack of weather systems would leave the planet in a state of flux. And even though some elements of life might cling to survival in pockets, the majority of life forms, including humanity, would likely be wiped out. That's a wrap on our deep dive into the apocalypse that could occur if Earth suddenly stopped spinning. While it's a scenario that's highly unlikely, it's certainly an interesting one to think about. Who knows what other unimaginable forces are at play in the universe, shaping our very existence? But for now, we can rest easy, knowing that Earth will keep spinning for the foreseeable future. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this exploration of a world-altering scenario, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, feel free to leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. What other what-ifs would you like to see us dive into next?